David Liggitt with Data Center Hawk, focused on cloud and co-location, data center industry trends, and dynamic market. I'm David Liggitt with Data Center Hawk. I am with Bill Winsininski. Bill, good morning. Great to see you.
Morning. Great to see you.
Bill is the Chief Revenue Officer with Digital Crossroad. And Bill and I have known each other for a while in the data center industry. And so, Bill, excited to get to hear about the Digital Crossroad project, which is a massive development taking place in Indiana, right by Chicago, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But before we do, would love to get an overview of your background and how did you get into the data center industry?
Yeah, well, thank you. It's been a pleasure watching your evolution with Data Center Hawk. I've known you for a while and I've seen it and I use it and all my colleagues use it. It's a great resource and I've watched that evolution. So congratulations. I think.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
It's really, really cool. I got started in the data center industry. I went to college. I went to UC Berkeley. And after school, I started working with a company called CMP Media, which I don't know if you remember back in the day. It was Information Week magazine, Network Computing magazine, Tele.com magazine, and they also had TechWeb, which is kind of like the founder of the beginning of kind of the things what we're doing now is talk about technology and publications, and so. But the discussion really was, and we worked really closely with publishing to talk about the latest trends in technology. And at that time, it was moving away from mainframe compute to distributed compute. And so I really I started working with Lattices and Equinix and Digital, and really getting into these buildings and just loving it. And then I got recruited out and went to work for a company called 365 Main, which which was in San Francisco, that built at 365 Main Street in San Francisco. They sold to Digital Realty, and then from there I went to a company called ByteGrid. That's where I got a taste of how economic development team in a region can really push. If you've got the support from the economic development and the municipality and the local chambers, the local economic development corporations that are set up, it is really pretty great.
It makes a difference.
Yeah, and that company, they ended up selling that property to H5, I believe. And then from there, I went to a QTS, which, I met you. I toured you at QTS, and another interesting opportunity to get in on a speculative build in a growth market, and build a team. So I built a team. We built a channel. We built the team. We were pre-leasing and going to market in that beautiful building there. They retrofitted out of the printing facility there at 2900 South Ashland. After that, I worked with Jack Vonich at InStore to help him with fit outs and build outs in the Midwest and sell, particularly for Oracle in the Midwest. And that's how I was kind of transitioning, figuring out what I wanted to do. I started my own consulting company and then got on with Digital Crossroad, which has been a excellent experience so far.
Yeah, you were speaking earlier just about the economic development and how important that can be to really change the way that data center users or developers might look at an area. I'm certain that that's been helpful as you've thought about what's happened in Indiana and the Digital Crossroad property. But for those that don't know, why don't you provide an overview of, the development itself and what you all are currently doing? It's really interesting. We were talking about before, it has a historical background and just a greater Indiana kind of energy story. So, give us a kind of the background of the development and then what you all are planning to do.
Oh yeah, site selection is key, as you know, right? And this site, built in 1920, was the State Line Power Plant, right, in the 20s. It was designed by Graham Prost, Anderson, and White, and commissioned by the Commonwealth Edison president, Samuel Insull, back in the day. At the time, it had 208 kilowatts of energy in just one of their lead generators. That was the largest energy producing generator in the world, right? And so this site Chicago residents on the outskirts of the city and rural farmland areas were lighting their homes, right? They were energizing their homes. The Industrial Revolution was taking shape, energy, and it was the crossroad of the Industrial Revolution in this area. Fast forward through its evolution, obviously, you know, the plant went in decline over the years, but it served this region and it served it well for a long time. And then fast forward to the 70s and the EPA, it became, you know, on the hit list from the EPA standards because as the power plant evolved, it didn't retrofit some of the newer pollution type of abatements that were in design at the time. You know, Thomas Edison actually worked at this plant at the beginning of its inception. So I mean, we've gone through this plant and seen like really cool drawings that were like signed, you know, in 1928, and like hand drafted drawings of this beautiful power plant. You know, ironically enough, power is our product as a data center, right? Power was their product supplying the crossroads and that transformation in the region at the time. And now with COVID and everything and how pervasive tech is and how much of a demand, insatiable demand for power is, you know, we are evolving this site and turning this site into the digital crossroad, the new crossroad, to be able to satisfy this region with the you know, with power, but with the new lifeblood of the economy, which is technology. And so I'm incredibly stoked. And on our website, we have all the information about the State Line plant. And I would love to introduce you to my colleagues, Tom Dockich, who has a real passion about this site, what it was and where it's going. And he can tell you all the great historical details as it relates to the State Line power plant and Digital Crossroads. And I can give you a tour of the data center.
And I think that's interesting because it certainly is a good illustration of how our world has changed over the last, you know, obviously 50 to 100 years, and, you know, the importance that we placed on the industrial side of things, and now, you know, the importance behind the digital, you know, side of things. So, you know, talk about the facility you're building today, and you know, how big it is, how much power you're able to bring in there. And then just some of the like attributes of the site. I mean, it is literally right on the lake.
Yeah.
You know, there's an on-site substation. You have, you know, like a long road from a power perspective to deliver, you know, significant amount of power. So talk about some of the characteristics of the site and what makes it unique.
Yeah, no, it's a campus building, right? So we're building a campus. When it's all said and done, we'll have 1.7 million square feet on this property. Phase one of the property goes live in October 31st, Halloween this year. And that is 105,000 square feet of data center with 85,000 square feet of data hall, supported by 20 megawatts of power. We have a substation on site. We have access to lake water, 900 million gallons a day access of lake water to cool the data hall. So we use water side economization to be able to cool the data center. We're using ambient air, water side economization, and then, you know, when it gets hot and sticky, those 2-3 weeks in here in Chicago, then we hit it with DX, and that keeps our PUE low and helps with our design. We have 1,728 strands of our dark fiber in the ground. So back to 350 Cermak. So, and then our engineering team and our network team has done a great job of building out manholes along the way to make it easy for carriers to splice in. So if you think about an incumbent coming to the data hall, you know, they have their, you know, a tenant coming to the data hall, they have their incumbent carrier or the carriers they want to use. If the carriers are close, we make it easy for them to traverse and get into the data hall.
Sure.
And then we also have, you know, the ability for them to access our dark fiber.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the interesting things about this development, because it is, you know, I guess 12, it sounds like 12 fiber miles, you know, away from 350 Cermak. You know, connectivity has become such an important part of the discussion today. So I think that it's connected back to that building makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about the Chicago data center market as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, this is, on the fringe of this market, right on the border of Indiana and Illinois. But talk about, you've been in the Chicago data center market for a long time and know it well, know how it works, know why companies want to be there, why they might not want to be there. But talk about the attributes of the market, how it's changed over time, and why the Digital Crossroad development is so significant in the midst of what's happening.
That's a great question. Yeah, the Chicagoland market, I've seen it grow and kind of taper off, and then watch deals fly over us. Right? I mean, you've seen it. You've seen the absorption in Ashburn, Santa Clara, Dallas, Phoenix, and places that normally would have come to the Midwest. I mean, the Midwest has, Chicagoland in particular, has the fiber. It has relatively low natural disasters. It's a great site selection. There is ample workforce and labor, both in the suburbs and downtown. People want to be downtown next to life and culture and stuff like that. As the data, this property, Digital Crossroads, we can literally straddle the Illinois-Indiana line, right? So we have an actual line right at our property, and you step over one, and that's 10.25 sales tax. You step right over the other side, it's sales tax.
Sure.
So, I mean, I think that the tax incentive legislation that Illinois passed is good for the rising tide raises all boats, I believe. I think it's good. We're starting to see that absorption in Chicago and starting to see a lot of that, a lot of those incentives really take hold with a lot of the hyperscalers, particularly the purpose-built hyperscalers, and also with the providers that have been approved for that legislation. Our legislation, we're approved. We're approved at Digital Crossroads. The advantages of the tax incentives in Digital Crossroad is, it's not only the tax incentives, but it's the fact that the state of Indiana has zero debt, right, and has a surplus.
Sure.
So it's the fourth. It's one of the easiest states in the nation to do business in. In this project, we have the governor of Indiana, the mayor of Hammond, Indiana, really in our court, and the economic development in the Northwest Indiana Economic Development Corporation. Everyone is behind this project, and so not only is it easy to do business, but the tax incentive is sweeping. So it's zero tax on IT hardware, zero tax on IT software, electricity, data center infrastructure, fit out and construction, installation, and fiber. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's a 50-year tax incentive, right? So it's let me just pull it up here. It's a 50-year tax incentive. So there's there's no minimum threshold in a 50-year window, right? So
yeah, that's a big deal. One of the things that we communicate, or I communicate to people, is a lot of characteristics about data center markets take time to change. But if you can impact the incentives, if you can change the way that the sales tax abatement on, IT equipment, the sales tax on a construction cost, on real estate. I mean, those things make a big difference, and that's a big way to change how large users evaluate a market. And, one of the things that I was going to bring up is we've seen, Illinois over the last, I guess it was 6 months to a year, they've also announced some tax incentives favorable to data centers. And so I'm thinking about what they've done, obviously what's been done in Indiana, which you just mentioned. And I think what you're starting to see, and we'll see, in 2021 moving forward, is some bigger users really look at the market maybe differently than they have before, because those tax incentives are in place. Do you think that's a safe, assessment of what might take place in the future?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that they're coming to the savvy buyers and the hyperscalers come to expect that. They want to know, I think places like Inerco County and Ashburn, Virginia, and others that have incentives that are pretty aggressive. I think big users that take advantage of those in other markets come to new markets expecting some sort of incentive like that.
And the other thing that they expect is, a mature story around renewable energy.
Yep.
And, and a pathway to, an energy story that is, eco-friendly and will serve the environment well over time to the best that you can.
Yep.
Just highlight that one more time on the Digital Crossroad renewable energy story and the sustainability mindset that, the development is taking.
Yeah. So not only do we have the ability to access lake water to cool the data hall, we will incorporate solar panels on our roof. We'll be generating roughly around 800 kilowatts of solar on our roof. We are developing a greenhouse on our campus to use excess data center heat to build a research and development greenhouse on our data hall, or not on our data hall, but on our campus. We are using that building, the Archway building has offices, and we're creating an incubation not only for sustainability, but for an incubator for tech and tech jobs and labor and stuff like that. So we're trying to be good stewards of the environment and good stewards of the community as well.
What are when you think about the space moving forward, you've been in the industry a long time, and I mean that as a compliment. But when you think about things moving forward, what gets you most excited about this industry, the development that you're working on, Chicago as a whole? Why are you excited to be in the space?
Well, I'm really stoked on this industry, and I continue to be so, because not only is it, it's a new job every day, but I'm starting to see things with 5G and just how technology is so prevalent in our lives, with COVID and all that has happened. It's really a paradigm shift. Now everything we do, grocery shopping, telemedicine, everything is tied to what we do, and that all goes back to a data center. I was talking to my buddy Doug Fulton the other day, and he works with a company that is a tower company, and they have micro edge data centers that they're building all over the United States, all over the world. And then a lot of tower companies are doing the same thing with fiber. And as it becomes more pervasive and the data centers become more as part of business, I used to tell my teams, there's nothing new in business that doesn't involve technology. And we support the foundation that runs it, right? That's a big responsibility. We're mitigating risk. So when we're talking to customers, we're mitigating the risk. So the second they walk in, we want to help mitigate that risk. Now, what gets me excited is that data centers are more on the tip of everyone's tongue. It used to be this mysterious building that no one really knew of. I saw the evolution of that, where it used to be these buildings, nondescript buildings. Then all of a sudden, people started putting logos on their buildings. I remember when Foresight put a logo on their building right off the highway, and QTS, you can see it right from the highway. And, we're planning to put our logo on Digital Crossroad logo on everything. So it's really interesting how they've become top of mind, and people kind of understand that is the home to the cloud. That is where the cloud lives. Like I was saying at the beginning during our conversation, I go downstairs and my son is on with his school. He's on his iPad, and then in the back on his PS4, he's crushing Fortnite and then doing tutorials. And then my daughter's walking around doing TikToks all day long, and my wife is on a Zoom call. We are crushing bandwidth. And I just think that it's so pervasive with everything we do. I think it's exciting to see what's next.
Yeah, totally agree. And, I think you all are right in the middle of what will happen. And certainly the development that you're working on is really interesting. And from our perspective, it's going to be fun to watch you all crush it as well. So Bill, thanks for taking the time to connect. Great to speak with you, and look forward to seeing you all succeed in the future.
Always a pleasure, David. Thank you.